Hello, this is Cindy Mazzaferro, and I'm so excited to bring to you Jodi Schuelke. And she is a certified life coach, international best-selling author, successful entrepreneur, speaker, educator, and corporate trainer and coach mentor. That's a lot of different skill sets there. She specializes in helping women struggling in their relationships to discover breakthroughs so they can experience more freedom and joy in their lives. She is passionate about helping women reclaim their strength, open up to new ways of thinking, and listening to and trusting their intuition so they can move on from relationships that are no longer serving them and finding the relationship of their dreams, the one they truly deserve. She shares it in her real story in this book we're going to talk about. And she knows firsthand the struggles of what being in unhealthy relationships look like and has nearly 3 decades of firsthand experience. 10 years ago, 10 years she spent trying to fix her emotional abusive first marriage, going through a divorce, co-parenting with a challenging ex during a tumultuous rebound relationship and breakup, dating again in her late 30s, and journeying to find the dream relationship and getting married again. That's quite the cycle, repeating again and again. Jodi has had the privilege to train and be mentored by some of the most noted coaches in the industry and holds a life coach certification from the Martha Beck Institute. She also holds a master's degree in management and organizational behavior, which is an emphasis in training and personal development. In addition to her individual and group coaching, she also utilizes her coaching skill in her role as an adjunct professor in corporate training, teaching interpersonal communication skills, career and life transitions, change management, and leadership. So I would love to introduce you to Jodi. Hi, welcome for joining us tonight.
Hi, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited because your book is just coming out, I believe, just in June. What was the official date?
The official release date was supposed to be June 6th, but it ended up coming out a few weeks early in a couple weeks before Memorial Day in May. Okay. So that was a surprise. Yeah, I was happy about that.
So do you have a copy of the book to hold up? It's called
I do.
I Just Want Out.
Yes, seven careful steps to leaving your emotionally abusive husband.
Beautiful. I love the picture of the woman walking away with a suitcase. That's so awesome.
Yes.
So why did you write this book?
Well, this book is really about my personal experience. And to be honest, it was like a cathartic book for me initially. But at the same time, I wrote it because I wanted to be able to help other women who were struggling with the same things that I was. You know, I was in a very unhealthy marriage and I had 2 young kids and I felt stuck and trapped. And I knew in writing this story that, I knew from my personal experiences that someday this was going to help other people. And then when I got to the point where I was able to actually write about my story and my personal journey, I knew that this would be a way to help even more women. Now, over the years, what I did do is I had a lot of people that came to me who knew that I went through this experience and were looking for advice and, assistance in that. And this was even before I became a certified life coach. So I was giving them tips and tricks and kind of life hacks and things you could do, I guess, that would help them get out of their situation or kind of, find workarounds so that they could get out of what they were in and have that happier life that they so desperately wanted.
It's so true that sometimes we have to go through these experiences and to be able to actually write about it. How do we survive it? How do we thrive from it? And right. And even practicing and coaching in limbo, if you will, until you actually decided to take that on as a passionate role and career.
Right.
So, you were in practice. You were practicing getting into the right relationship. That was one that was fostering love and mutual respect and compassion.
Yes.
And, we all want that.
Absolutely.
So why do you feel that women fall prey to this unhealthy or abusive relationships? We choose the wrong partners.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a variety of factors that fall into play. The first thing I want to point out is that getting into an emotionally abusive relationship can happen to anybody. It's not just, somebody who's poor or from, small rural areas. It can happen to anybody, any demographic, socioeconomic status. Everybody can be affected by this, and they are. I think there's so many different things that kind of drive this. But at the core, I think what it is that there's some sense of self-awareness or self-esteem. And I know you talk about that in your book too, that maybe is lacking. And again, it's really no fault of the individual who is suffering or who is finding themselves in this situation. It's just something that happens. But I think they're lacking some kind of base or foundational knowledge about themselves. And it could be because of how they grew up, kind of their family dynamics, maybe religious or cultural beliefs. And they, for whatever reason are, drawn to or find themselves succumbing to relationships with these type of partners. But what I will say is that usually these partners, the emotionally abusive types, they don't come across that way in the beginning. They come across as normal, good people. And it's in time, as they let down their facades or take their masks off, as they feel more comfortable, I guess, in being themselves, that's when things are really revealed slowly. And I know in my case, I thought that with I had two sons with my first husband. And my first son, I was like, I want to have a baby. And I was kind of in that, like a newly married, I want to have a baby, that type of mindset. But with my second son, and I wrote about this in my book, in the intro of my book, I had him, and I didn't realize it at the time until after he was born, but I had him because I thought I could fix my marriage, that it would help things. And I think, kind of to continue on with your question, so people fall prey to these relationships for, different reasons or factors or what have you. But women tend to stay in these relationships because they feel like they are, going to, they can fix it or change, or, they can get them to come around in that. And that was truly what I thought I was doing too. Like, I could fix my marriage by having another child. It would make my husband, want to be a father and be involved and actually finally care if there were more people in the picture. And what I found was that wasn't the case.
So let's go back a little bit and break this down into two parts, because I think it's really, you kind of touched a little bit on it. It's that what's causing or what may cause women to be attracted to people that tend to be more domineering, over aggressive, making you feel weaker. And you mentioned a little bit, it could be based on environment, your own family dynamics. Maybe you had poor parenting, relationships where your parents didn't get along. So the role modeling wasn't there for you.
Correct. Right.
Maybe your mother also was somewhat quiet, dismissive, not assertive, and allowed her husband to bully her as well as the children.
Right.
So if that happens, we're, what makes us want to repeat this? And I think you talked a little bit about this, our self-esteem. It comes from kind of like, this is the role that we might expect ourselves to be in. Not that we know it at the time.
Right.
And I think that's what's important, is that if you're struggling in your relationship, whatever degree, it doesn't mean you were abused, or maybe you had good dynamics. Maybe there's an issue of lack of trusting someone, so that you're not putting yourself truly out there. So if you're kind of also confiding and controlling yourself, not really sharing equally with your partner, he's going to also pick up that you're hiding. You're kind of
right.
And so there's a lot of things that go into relationships overall. Work relationships, friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, and even husbands, and then of course your children. But that I think it's so important. Relationships are so dynamic. And so what would you say for yourself to to be able to be in any relationship successful, regardless of the intimacy or that kind of, partnership as a marriage, what is the most important thing that you found to enter any relationship is there?
What I found is, like way back, when I was younger and in this situation, a lot of it was based on fear. And, I wasn't sure about myself and, like you talked about too, the family dynamics. And I had the kind of the parents that were like, ooh, don't get divorced. That's shameful. You need to stick it out. And there was definitely a lot of like success was the number of years that you put into a marriage, that type of thing. But what I was seeing, as I was growing up was that, quantity doesn't equal quality for sure. And so that was, really what I've learned in the process of going through this myself and helping others is that, the things that you were taught or that you thought were the rules or the right way isn't always what's truly the best thing for you or your kids for that matter. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think as women, we tend to be the fixers, the nurturers, and that sometimes we initially start to try to fix ourselves, change our behavior so that we fit into the role that our partner wants us to be.
Right.
Assume, and that just tends to drive our self-esteem even farther down, feeling that we're lacking something, we're missing something, we're not enough, we're not valued, respected, any of those type of words are there. And that is so debilitating. And it's hard to get out of that because you're always feeling that yourself, and then you have the external stimuli that continues to push you down.
Correct. And when you're dealing with somebody who is emotionally abusive, now they don't consider themselves that way in any stretch of the imagination. They just feel like you're not behaving or complying or acting in accordance to their rules or expectations. So if you push back at them, it just makes it worse, right? So those external factors are an issue, like, behind that. How does that saying go? You never know what goes on behind closed doors, I think is how it goes. So in the home, it's much more intense, right? Out in public, it's a little more subdued. Right. But it still can some people will pick up on some of the cues that, hey, something's not quite okay there.
You said that there's a facade. The husbands or the partners will wear this facade. They're the most gentlemanlike. They have great manners. They open the door for the woman. It shows all these proper things and ways to be. But like you said, behind closed doors, it's a whole different story.
Exactly.
And you can't run away from this. You're in this domicile. You're in your residence. And, you can walk out of the room, but you're in fear. Is there going to be more retaliation?
Right.
It's just a constant renewal of degradation towards yourself, about yourself.
Correct. And when your kids are younger too, there's this other external pressure from other people and maybe even society, like, oh my gosh, you have to keep this family intact, and all of the issues and you're going to mess up your kids if you get divorced. It's just going to mess them up. And I heard that multiple times, whether it was, not necessarily directly from people, but indirectly. People would make comments or judgments about other people getting divorced, and just imagine what their kids are going to end up being like after this. And it was horrible, and it made me feel awful. And again, that whole fear thing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dilemma because my parents were divorced. So it affected me very much so because I didn't have a male father in my life. And that's in my book. So to me, I do think not having both partners in a thriving relationship definitely does have an impact on the children. But I know, reading your book, let's go into what you were starting to see your children were experiencing when they saw how father was treating mother and even themselves. So why don't you share a little bit of that?
Yeah. So I started, so my two sons are 3.5 years apart. And so my oldest son was starting to really act out, and he was acting out toward me. And I started hearing him say phrases and stuff that his dad would say to me. And, and that was like very alarming. But at the same time as being the mom, when I would see my son's dad, raging at him because he knocked over a glass of milk at the table, right? I was in mother bear protective mode, like, don't hurt my child, right? So it was like this crazy thing. And really, truly what that whole seeing the effects on my oldest son primarily were really, really troublesome, and it made me really think, though, you know what, I don't want this future. There's got to be something better than putting up with this, because I've seen so many couples that stay together for the kids. And
it's really a very difficult decision. And whether you stay together or whether you do divorce, there's always a loss there somewhere in the process. And it's, it is going to absolutely, no matter how great you think you're going to handle this divorce or separation, it is absolutely going to have an effect on the children.
Right.
It's having an effect on you, as you depart, it will definitely have an effect. And I think it's really important as parents, at least from my vantage point, is that we need to really be able to keep our communication open with our children, allow them to express this energy and emotion, anger, loss, whatever the word you want to use here, because they are experiencing it. And even though you said only your older son, your younger son at 3 is going to have a different perception. I had 4 sisters. The oldest one was 9 years of age. I was 7, but it went all the way down to 9 months of age as my younger sister. And every one of us have a different perception about the divorce.
Correct.
My oldest sister viewed my mother not being an adequate wife. You drove him away. You weren't good enough as a wife. Because from her vantage point, from her age, being the oldest daughter, you didn't hold it together. Now she's on her 3rd divorce. She tried to be the best wife, my older sister, and it didn't work out. She did 7-course meals. She ironed his boxers, ironed his sheets. I'm going to do being a wife better. And it doesn't mean it's going to. So, having perfection in relationships doesn't happen. And, but it's so important to realize that everyone is always still impacted. And being true to yourself of how that's impacting you is really important in that resolution. And I know you have 7 steps to freedom framework, you call it in your book.
Yes.
You go over those 7 steps.
Yes, I can. Okay. So, yes, I wanted to really make this process not so scary and overwhelming. I mean, there's a lot of information in my book. But yes, I broke it down into 7 steps that I call the freedom framework process. And I'm just going to turn to the page in my book so I can give you a little highlight of those. So, so each of the steps is based on one of the letters in the word freedom. And the first step is for F is free your mind. And this is really like a foundational step in the process where, I talk about, thoughts versus emotions and circumstances and kind of help the reader and the clients I work with understand what I want them to do is kind of try to start to learn how to separate from the emotion a little bit and understand what creates like our thoughts and our emotions and reactions, right?
And just on that point, a lot of our emotions, when you do that assessment, what you have to think about is this emotion true and current and appropriate for this time and place at this moment. Because often, which I read in my book, is our emotions are suppressed and repressed and kind of hiding within ourselves from past wounds. So if you're holding, emotional pains from the way your father was treating your mother, that's a residual emotional charge. That when you see your spouse treating you a certain way, you're already triggered because there's an emotional track from it.
Correct. Yes.
So what you're saying is you have to have that conscious mind to evaluate your emotional response because it might not be really true from today's moment.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's really important.
Yeah. And definitely, I also touch on in this particular step, like things that are holding you back or how you are holding yourself back. Okay. And yeah, this is a huge decision and a huge step. And I mean, just the whole process of even thinking about, oh my gosh, I think I want to leave my marriage and, move forward. It's not like, hey, I'm going to go shopping. It's a major, major life change, and it is super scary. So, wanting the readers to understand that, we do get in our own way in different ways. And, just understanding like what factors can kind of, unintentionally maybe hold us back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the other thing, because trying to leave an emotionally abusive marriage is, again, it's not easy. And when I wrote this book, truly, when I went through the process myself, it took me 18 months from when I said, you know what, this is what I need to do. And all of the planning and preparation I did to the point of when I did finally leave. So that, and in that process, I was ready, unsure. Yeah. So there was a lot of that.
Doubt, right?
A lot of doubt. Absolutely. So, and part of it though, when I was in that place of, yes, I'm doing this, and I was doing my planning and preparation, I had to learn how to kind of put on my own facade so that I could get my tasks done that I needed to do, still manage and operate in the household. So yeah, I kind of had to do that a little bit. And I call it stepping into character. You're kind of becoming an actress in a sense. And I know some people are like, oh, that's so awful. Why would that's so wrong? And it's like, well, it's also a survival piece too.
Exactly. Yes.
So, and that was what's important about that. And then also just the idea, and I talked about this taking like 18 months for myself when I went through it, is about being patient, that this is not something you just go, oh, I'm going to do this next month.
Right.
In January 1st, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. It takes time, and you have to be patient with yourself. And know, like we talked about with the doubt, that will step back in.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So the second step is, for R, is research and documentation. So
Right.
when you think about when you get divorced, it's emotional. There's a lot of pieces to it. And what I'm doing in this book is I'm really trying to take the emotion and not saying that it doesn't matter, but kind of setting it over to the side, because now we have to really look at the business side of this marriage. Because when you go through a divorce and when you're working with an attorney and going through that process, that is what they do. They are about the business side. So it's really teaching you how to prep for that. Because if you don't have the documentation or don't know what your financial assets are, where things are, or, any of the stuff like, what tangible items do you own that are of value that, may have to be split up or sold or what have you. If you don't know that, it's going to cost you a lot more money when you work with that attorney and take you longer to get through your divorce. So yeah, a lot of that step 2 is really about teaching those initial things of, these are the things you need to start to be aware of. Because a lot of women in this situation, they, their spouse is very controlling, and many times they don't have any idea or have limited idea of what is going on financially, what their assets are, where things are at. So it's, kind of starting that, okay, now let's start that investigative work on where things are at and getting more involved in stuff.
And again, that's just another scary situation, because you're afraid that he's going to find out what you're doing. Where do you keep your documentation? It's difficult, and you feel like you're kind of being sneaky and going behind, but you at this point already made your decision that it's a matter of, I need to survive. I need to bring my children to a safe environment that's more nurturing. You've already made that decision.
Right.
So now you're just trying to optimize the results so that you can all thrive when you leave.
Correct. Because a lot of, I think, perceptions or misunderstandings or assumptions, false assumptions that some women have is like, well, if I just pick up my bag of clothes and my kids and I leave, I can come back and get my stuff later.
Yeah.
Not in these situations. If you leave the house and you leave the idea is that you're not going to be able to get back in and get your things.
And actually, don't they tell you that once you leave, you lose, it's like you're abandoning the home. You're better off having him leave. And again, having documentation, if you've called in the police a couple times of disputing or physical, if you have that, then all of a sudden you can then bring this to through the court system, through your lawyer, saying,
Right.
you need to keep, protection. You have to
Correct.
give him a, what do they call that?
Restraining order.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, right.
So yeah,
Right.
and making sure you do reach out to the police, make sure they actually file a report.
Correct. Or even, like in my situation, I lived in a very small town. Police did come one time while we were still married, about a year before I finally, I was 6 months into my planning, and we had an incident, and I had to, I called the police, and, I didn't press any charges, but at the same time, it was because of where I lived, like the local police officers knew something was up.
Right.
And so I had that in my favor as far as having that protective support, I guess you could say.
Right.
So, and I just want to note too, that with my book, I wrote it based on my situation, and that I left my home. And I chose to do that. And that was really, a lot of it was based on some really, I don't know if healthy is the right word, but I got some advice from a friend who used to be a family law attorney. And he explained to me the pros and cons of leaving versus staying in the marital home. And what he said a lot of women think is that they should stay, when he said in reality, while it may seem super scary and, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it on my own? He's like, you're better off to leave, because financially in the end, when you're going through your divorce, you tend to come out of the situation financially better.
Because if you stay in it, for example, and he's forced to leave, you've got to pay the mortgage, you've got to pay the taxes.
Yes.
And maybe you're not working, maybe you're the mother and you stay at home. All of a sudden, then you gain great debt, because if he's not going to be providing, that's why he's going to court. I can see the value in you being the one that leaves too.
Right. And the other thing I just want to point out on that real quick is that when it's somebody who is abusive, they have a tendency to think that this is my property, their spouse and their children are their property, and the home and any of the other, tangible assets are theirs. And there is the higher tendency of them to try to stalk you, to try to break into the house or come and go when they want, because they're like, I still own it, it's mine.
Right.
So that's another thing to keep in mind is, what is their propensity of, doing stuff like that? Yes.
And also when you continue to live in that cage, if you will, that confines, there's a perpetual energy that when you walk around that home, you're still, even though he's not there, there may be an energy that you feel trapped. I mean, I remember this corner of the room when I was slammed against the wall, or, so sometimes it's better to make the break, a clean start, fresh start, where you have freedom and expansion and capabilities. So
exactly. Yes, definitely. And in my book, I continue on, like the next letter E is evaluate your current situation. So it's really important as you're going through this to really do like these check-ins along the way with yourself. And this is what I do with my clients too, is like, okay, where are you at? How are you feeling? It's not about where you are on the checklist necessarily, but where are you at emotionally?
Right.
How are you feeling about this? Where is the fear and the self-doubt and all of that? Because that, again, like kind of realizing that, while I have these 7 steps in the book and they're kind of laid out in an order, you're kind of weaving back and forth between things all the time.
I can see that.
Yeah, definitely. And then my other E is exercise your rights. Now, when you're in a controlling marriage or unhealthy relationship, that other overpowering person tends to make you feel like you have no rights. Mm-hmm. But you do have rights. You have legal rights. And when you're married, doesn't matter how long you're married, you still have rights to things. And understanding, like what your financials are, and, having, like, I live in the state of Wisconsin, and it's a marital property state. So anything that happens, like if somebody takes out a loan or any property they own, it's really marital property. So you need to be able to know what you all have, to know, so like, again, when you go to the attorney, that they can say, okay, these are the assets and this is how we can, legally break these things up and make it equal or equitable for both sides. Mm-hmm. Then my letter D is design your exit. Now, this is really, where it talks about like, do you want to leave your home or do you want to stay? Now, again, my book is primarily on the option of leaving the home and the steps that go into that. But I know there are situations where some people are like, no, I can't leave here. He needs to go. And that would definitely, that takes a little different, that planning is different.
But I think the thing you've talked about is having legal counsel advice can help steer you the right way.
Correct.
And I know that brings up a problem because people are saying, well, what if I can't afford a lawyer? How do I do that? So,
right.
And I believe there are some legal services that are free for people that need that. Is that true?
Yes, there are. And you can, obviously with that, you can Google online to look for, the legal services for individuals with low income. I think you can even check with any of the, the county human services, and even some of the domestic violence shelters or organizations. You can contact them and they have a list of resources that they can provide you. Or if you can also look on their website, which is really good. And I'm just going to continue on with the next step on here because I know we're kind of limited on time. So the next step is for the letter O is actually about opposition. And in the book, I title it Prepare for Opposition. Because this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is, well, first of all, you want to build a healthy support network for yourself because going at this alone is so hard. And your support network can be, in addition, like if you have a coach, that's fine. But, I had a therapist. I had somebody who was giving me legal advice, on the side. I had, specific, very trusted friends that I could go to for support and encouragement. And I also was able to get some of my family members on board. Now, and I say some of them because I didn't reveal to my entire family what was all going on. And I knew the key people that I could trust with getting support. So, as things moved on and everything, what I had happen for me is my family members actually said, you know what, we will we will help you out and we're going to kind of just let the other family members know. So it was kind of going out in these little additional layers or circles so that more of my family understood what was going on. Because, I wasn't showing up for things or I was busy working like 3 jobs at the time trying to make all this extra money. They're like, what's going on? So that part was good. But so I built this support network, but at the same time, there are going to be people along the way that don't agree with what you're doing.
Right. Of course.
And right. And it could be like, I had a friend who was like, why are you doing that? What's wrong with your marriage? What, are you just not happy enough? And I was like, devastated by that. I'm like, I can't believe where's the support?
Well, they're not living in your shoes.
Exactly.
You look through the window.
Exactly. And, and then the other thing is once the cat is out of the bag, the people, friends, sometimes relatives, like people don't understand, or maybe they don't believe you. I mean, we see it with movie stars all the time. Like somebody's accused of, some sort of, physical abuse. And they're like, oh, that the girl made it up. She punched herself in the face, crazy stuff like that. But truly that happens. Like people just, there's like this huge disbelief, or maybe it's, they were closer friends to your soon-to-be ex, as I refer to them. And
it could be a gender thing, it could be, it's a woman thing, So
exactly.
What's the last one for free?
The last letter is actually make your move. And that is actually all about the moving day and, how to prepare for moving and what that looks like. And if you've never moved before, or you're not somebody who's moved a lot, it's very overwhelming. And in my case, in my book, I talk about how to basically make your move within a matter of like a few hours. Like you can move out and be out, of the marital home very quickly if you plan accordingly.
Well, what I like about it is it really gives you, puts you through your sequence, but it allows you to be empowered and have a process, to have a plan to get to the end result, instead of just haphazardly saying, I've had it, I'm leaving, and then you're destitute and desperate. And that's a place of weakness, not a place of empowerment.
Correct.
So
Correct. Totally.
that's
Totally.
really important. So I know that you have your books available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and bookstores. They can order it. There's ebooks and regular books.
Right.
So you really, and I know you actually have 2 other books. You want to just say the 3 titles? So it's actually a process.
Correct.
So
Yes.
why don't you say the other names of your books?
Sure. So my second book is Relationship Detox, 7 Steps to Prepare for Your Ideal Relationship. And my third book is Finding Forever Love, 7 Steps to Your Mr. Right.
Great. I love it. And you had to go through all of these yourself. So it's doable. It's attainable. You don't have to live in misery and fear and depression, and you can thrive. And that's what
Correct.
we all want.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really important.
Absolutely.
So, so tell us how we can get in touch with you if somebody's interested in reaching out to you. Your website is?
Sure. My website is ijustwantoutbook.com. All smashed together. ijustwantoutbook.com. And on that website page, you can find a link to get my book. You purchase it online if you want. I also have a Journey to Freedom toolkit that you can get, and that is a download of, there's a checklist of all the different steps that I talk about in the book and go into more detail about things. So I have a couple checklists, and you can also, if you would like, register for a free consultation with me, which I call my Journey to Freedom consultation. And what I do there is I actually talk with women, typically women. I spoke with men too, but I will actually talk with women about where they're at in their situation. This is all confidential. Talk about where they're at, what they want to do and how they want to get there. And we go through some of their checklist to see, what things have they accomplished and what's still left to do. So that part is
important to have a support system, and actually, even this complimentary call, this introductory call that you can do with Jodi, it's a great support system because someone's been through that, and having that emotional support is really great. And I know you either can work with you individually coaching, which again, sometimes the financial aspect rolls up again.
Yep.
But you also put together a wonderful virtual coaching course.
Yes.
Much less money, but you can still get some great support and resources available.
Correct. And actually, as of the taping of this, I am just finishing up doing the last videos of that program, and I'm going to be making that available very soon. But that is something that I will have on my website as well very soon.
Wonderful. Well, this has really been exciting in the sense that you've broken free. You're emotionally free to experience love and joy in your house and your family, and your boys are all thriving, I'm assuming.
Yes, they are great. My oldest son just graduated from college.
Great.
And my youngest son just graduated from high school. So yes, we are doing wonderful. My new husband, Dan, we've been married actually going on 5 years. And yeah, everything is truly wonderful. And I'm so happy that, you think about it at the time, like, oh, this is the most awful thing in the world, but it is those experiences happen for a reason. It has allowed me to get to the point I'm at now, and now be able to help other people as well.
Exactly. Sometimes the paths we walk becomes the tools, the resources, and the support that we can give others. We have to walk our own path, learn our lessons to be able to grow and expand. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Jodi. It's absolutely great. Why don't you hold up your book one more time?
Oh yes, we'll do that.
And there you go. I Just Want Out. And I know there's many people that are listening to this. They feel they're lost. They have no way to escape, no way. And there is a way. And ordering the Kindle or the Nook, any of the ebook or the physical books are just really great resources to at least start there and to plan, to really explore, is this the right choice for you?
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time, Jodi, and much success with all your books, and have a wonderful, happy life to all of you.
Thank you.
Take care.